it was destroyed and 2 million.
All right, finally. It didn't work earlier. Wow. The link in the chat, click on it because that's a live recording released from the IDF of a Hamas terrorist ringing home to his mummy, saying he killed people. And the internet, I posted it earlier. Oh, that's good. Al Jazeera have just shown a picture of Israeli troops, and one of the Israeli troops is having a piss in the middle of the field. Well, I don't think they noticed that. Yeah, as I was saying, it's a video of an Israeli. It's a video of a recording of her Hamas fighter ringing home to Mummy, saying, Mummy, I've killed people. Open WhatsApp and you see all the people I killed. I killed the husband, then I raped the wife, and then I killed her too. And then I killed more people. All in my bare hands. Yeah. All right. And then there's 100,000 people, possibly 500,000, marching in London today, blocking off one of our major hospitals in London, supporting Hamas, supporting Palestinians. Now, I hope St. Thomas's Hospital didn't have any emergency admissions today, because those people will now be dead. Because St. Thomas's Hospital was completely blocked off. And if I'd been going up to St. Thomas's today, in the ambulance or in my car, and I'd hit that roadblock, I'd run them over. Move, or I will run you over. I don't know how the police allowed it. Because that's public endangerment.
The same on Sunday with these storms erupting around the Red Sea. So let's go here for a closer look. Not just in Jeddah, but the other side of the Red Sea as well.
Oh my God.
The rain also moving into northwest Saudi Arabia.
Where is the US fleet?
Up and down the Gulf states looking good. Things much more comfortable.
In the Red Sea. The weather forecast is on severe storms to hit the Red Sea. Bye-bye, US Navy. No, severe weather warning for the Red Sea. Oops. That's funny. As they say, God works in mysterious ways.
Same goes for Kenya. Weather alerts in play here for how intense that rain has been.
If a hurricane's just about to hit the Red Sea, there ain't a lot that the US are going to be doing, because it's certainly not going to be flying in it.
Jeddah goes from 23 to just 10 degrees on Monday.
Displaced Palestinians have now taken supplies from a UN food supply centre in southern Gaza, as shortages leave 2.3 million at risk of starvation. Palestinians in Deir el-Bahla left the facility with food bags and boxes. Say they feel more abandoned than ever by the international community.
We have no flour, no aid, no water, not even toilets. Our houses were destroyed. No one cares about us. We appeal to the people of the world. All international powers are against us. We needed aid, and we wouldn't have done this if we weren't in need.
Juliet
Oh,
is the communications director.
Palestinians have just raided the Red Cross Aid Centre, taking all the food.
After Friday's bombing campaign brought down communications.
No, they broke into the aid centre. Let me put the TV up.
Humanitarian operation, even though UNRWA is the largest humanitarian actor on the ground, and we have been responding to the overwhelming needs, including those in 150 shelters, 600,000 at least people who fled their homes and came to our shelters in search of safety.
This is not the first time Israel has done this. I mean, how have you worked around it before? And can you just explain why this time is different?
Look, I don't know about previous times. What I know is about today. Today, we have only one line of communications with our director, who continues to be in southern Gaza, in Rafah. And this is what we know. And we've just been able to establish some communications with our area offices. That these are 5 of them spread across the Gaza Strip, but only just recently, and only using sat phones, which is also patchy and not always reliable.
Yeah, of course. I want to talk about the bombardment overnight. We understand that there are many people trapped under the rubble. Obviously, with communications being so patchy, with civil defence, with emergency services as well. I mean, how much of an impact is that on just simply getting people out from under the rubble to medical treatment, to the hospitals that are still operating?
Yeah, we received reports that the bombardments last night were believed to be some of the heaviest since the war started 3 weeks ago. We've lost 53 of our colleagues in Gaza during the war. And until last night, we were not able to check on that situation. But highly likely that we have also lost more colleagues during the bombardments last night.
Our correspondent who's in Gaza was explaining that food is now becoming a huge problem, that people for the first time are going hungry, and that there is widespread starvation in the making. Can you just give us an update on that situation when it comes to food?
Food, water, and fuel, they're being used as weapons of war. And supplies are running out, and meanwhile, the aid trucks are not at all enough. They are, we've called them a drop in the ocean, a drop in the sea of needs, and they're not increasing. And today we did not have a convoy. So it's getting much more complicated, and it won't be surprising that people who have been trapped in a hellhole, the hellhole that Gaza has become, with very dwindling supplies, yes, they are likely to be hungry and frustrated.
Yeah, I know you probably won't have seen this because it's just been happening in the last hour or so, but we have been watching huge rallies around the world, namely in London, as well as Istanbul, Baghdad, as well as the US and New Zealand and many other countries. Does that give you a sense of hope that people are taking to the streets in support of Palestine and Palestinian people and what they're going through in Gaza right now?
Look, what's really important is for the world to remember that across the Gaza Strip, there are 2 million people who are just like you and I. I mean, I've been on several occasions over the past year, and people there are very kind. Our teams on the ground are very dedicated, and they are really the glimmer in this darkness as humanity sinks into its darkest hour. So it's very important to remember that Gaza has 2 million people, women, children, elderly, normal men, normal women, doctors, engineers, and it was a very beautiful place.
My colleague Tom McRae speaking to Juliet Juma from UNRWA earlier in the programme. We'll leave you with live pictures from Gaza where large booms can be heard and explosions heard as well. Please stay with us.
Every year in China, an estimated 80,000 children are abducted by one of their parents. 101 East follows some mothers desperately trying to reunite with them on Al Jazeera.
Expo 2023, Doha, the world of fascination, where science meets nature. A world of joy, where millions will be entertained, and where you will savor every moment of the present while celebrating the future. Join us and let's discover a better world. Expo 2023, Doha.
Doha.
No matter where
Guitar.
our teleport services keep you connected to the world. With state-of-the-art fiber,
I was there
redundancy,
the day their new airport
enabling real-time
opened,
advanced
and
communications,
it was a disaster. No power,
even closer.
no check-ins, all the planes were delayed. Oh, it was a nightmare.
The earthquake zone extends much deeper into the mountains, and we've watched a search and rescue effort get underway.
Afghanistan?
Despite the risk, we're seeing residents returning to their homes in search of their belongings.
The structure here completely destroyed. You can see it's minaret in cracks. Here it just goes to show again the challenge of bringing heavy equipment into these areas.
The army is deploying its helicopters to the epicenter of the earthquake. It's a race against time to find people still trapped under the rubble.
I don't know where that was. Don't know if it was Turkey or Afghanistan. Looked like Afghanistan.
I'm Sahil Rahman. You're watching the Al Jazeera News Hour live from my headquarters here in Doha, with continuing special coverage of the war on Gaza. Coming up in the next 60 minutes, more explosions in Gaza, hours after the heaviest bombardment since the war began. Israel says its ground troops are fighting inside the territory. Protests against Israel's war on Gaza gather pace as hundreds of thousands of people join Palestinian solidarity rallies across the globe. More than 1,000 people are trapped under rubble. Rescue efforts are hampered by ongoing airstrikes and a lack of equipment. The UN says civil order has collapsed. Hamas says it's confronting Israeli raids into Gaza as barrages of rockets continue to be launched from the Strip into Israel. And growing fears for the fate of captives held in the territory as their families pressure the Israeli government for a deal to secure their release. It's gone just past 1600 hours. That's just after 6 o'clock in the evening in Gaza, where Palestinians are being warned again by Israel to leave northern parts of the Strip. The Israeli army says its troops are still in the field in Gaza after widening attacks on the territory. Israel unleashed the heaviest bombing since the start of the war on Friday. Now, the UN says the situation is dire, with no place considered safe. The relentless bombing campaign came in tandem with a near-total communications blackout. Emergency services were unable to find the injured, instead resorting to chasing the sound of airstrikes. Well, around the world, protests are being held, denouncing Israel's military actions, and that includes London, Rome, Baghdad, and Istanbul. We'll get more on the protests later in the programme, but first let's cross over to Tariq Abu Azoum in Khan Yunis in Gaza for the very latest. And Tariq, just bring us up to speed on what you can see and hear. We have heard air raids.
You got some speed. Wow, did you hear that, guys?
In these last few
It's got
minutes.
speed.
Well, that's true. A barrage of rockets have been fired towards the Israeli.
There's a hell of a lot of people at the hospital tonight. Flipping heck.
Also, these kinds of barrage
barrages of rockets
Must be the weekend.
The early beginning of this round of fighting between Palestinian fighters and the Israeli occupation forces.
It's the first time it's been on today, so he must have been sleeping.
Just before a couple of hours, the Israeli occupation air forces leveled to the ground a residential building in a sheltered refugee camp. This building has been completely destroyed. Also, the air raids continue in Rafah district.
Yeah, go to my website, guys. Look at the terrorist training camp for teenagers. I posted the video today about the terrorist training camp for the teens. So they're not innocent children at all. They are given, as teens, 18-year-old teens, they're given £10,000 a year wages and a free apartment. And then, of course, they get free electric, gas, fuel, and food, of course, food and water.
How difficult is it going to get to maintain power, to charge your phones and to use cameras?
Well, with the Israeli ongoing closure of borders and the prevention of fuel entry, the Gaza Strip has been sunk into a complete blackout of electricity. Now, this crisis has been compounded by the blackouts of communication in different areas.
He's talking fast because they could lose communication again any second. As you see, because there's no bombing at the moment, they've got their communications back. But as soon as the air raids start again, they'll lose their communications again. It's not because Israel's taken out the communications network, it's because the pressure of the bombs is blowing it out of service.
Asking about what is the latest updates. We'd like to know. We cannot really have any contact with the outer world. We face a great difficulty even in having any kind of communication.
Like,
with
in a minute, you'll probably hear a load of bangs. We're not under air raid. That's fireworks for bonfire night, which will be probably next Sunday night, I think. Hold on, where's the clock? No, calendar, no, you don't calendar.
Events with you and our correspondents across Gaza in the hours ahead. Thank you.
Hold on, sorry.
Lives in Gaza. He described what the last 24 hours have been like.
This is the 21st day of the Israeli aggressions.
Yeah, next Sunday, so a week tomorrow, is bonfire night. Now, normally, 2 weeks before bonfire night, right through, well, from tonight basically, right through to the new year, we normally get fireworks. So don't think when you hear all the bangs, we're under attack. It's fire. Well, I'm hoping it will be fireworks, not Russia declaring war on us.
Churches have been bombed, hospitals have been bombed, mosques have been bombed. We were told, go to the south will be safe. 4 people died in the south, or bombs are in the north. So this is a regime that is built on deception. This is a regime that's been killing and taking Palestinian rights for decades. Tonight, I'm going to sleep like millions of others on the floor with the sky above me as my blanket. And I do not know what I'm going to have for dinner.
Now, the spokesman of Hamas's armed wing says an agreement was in the works to release captives held in Gaza, but he says it was derailed because Israel is stalling the process.
Contacts
Israel are just thugs.
And there was a chance to reach a sort of agreement, but the enemy stalled and was not serious to put an end to the suffering and the bombardment.
They're just thugs.
This constant shelling has led to the death of around 50 of these captives. And from here, we are telling the enemy that
but no one's brave enough to take Israel on. So they'll get away with anything because no one's got the bottle
East
to
Jerusalem,
sort them out.
the Israeli military's latest
Because the
warning
world's
to people
cowards.
in northern Gaza.
Yeah, well, the spokesman for the army, Daniel Hagari, has said on Twitter, on social media, that he's warning it's an urgent appeal to those living in the north of Gaza and Gaza City to head to the south. It's interesting, the wording in there, because he said to temporarily move to the south. We've not really heard that until now. There's also amongst Palestinians certainly a feeling that they're trying to force the Palestinians out of Gaza through opening these humanitarian corridors. There's also been talk that they don't want this to be a second Nakba.
Oh, I'm not looking at the screen. Sorry.
Catastrophe in
I was on my phone.
1948 when 750,000 Palestinians were forced from their homes. Many of them had to leave and have never been able to return. Also in that message, he said that they were looking to target Hamas with precision rather. Again, trying to tell Palestinians and even international community, because there has been that criticism towards Israel. So they're trying to say that they would only be targeting Hamas and not civilians. Well, of course, the death toll tells us a very different story of civilians that have been killed in Gaza. But also the other thing is how are they getting that message across to people in Gaza when it's in complete blackout? People aren't able to access the internet. They're not able to even be
no internet, no cell phone service, but
where the only way to be able to communicate
the IDF are phoning people, telling them to move south. So, see, it's all lies out of Al Jazeera.
Has been plunged into complete darkness with no electricity, no telecommunication, and no access to the internet. The government has previously dropped leaflets to inform the Palestinians in Gaza. Potentially they could do that again. But for many people, they refuse to leave, even though Israel has accused Hamas of stopping them from being able to move.
Now, the UN Secretary General has visited Doha to discuss what he called an unprecedented escalation in Gaza. Antonio Guterres met with the Qatari Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, discussing options for de-escalation. Farhan Haq is Deputy Spokesman for the UN Secretary General and joins us now live from New York. Mr. Haq, good to have you with us. An unscheduled stop in Doha, how important was it for the Secretary General to speak to officials here?
Well, the Secretary General wanted to have consultations on the Middle East crisis. So in Doha, he spoke to the Prime Minister of Qatar, but he also spoke by telephone with President Sisi of Egypt. So he's continuing his contacts, and he expressed his gratitude to Qatar for their mediation initiatives. So we are continuing to plead for the release of all of the hostages who are in Gaza.
How does the Secretary General feel or think that Qatar can actually, you might say, make a difference or make inroads? Speaking to our editor, who you know very well, James Bays, he talks about Qatar's position of being able to talk to everybody in different ways.
Well, for us, the big point is to reach out to everyone we can who have influence with either side, with either Israelis or with Hamas, to put an end to the situation that we're in right now. For the Secretary General, what that means is that the hostages must be released unconditionally, that there must be unimpeded humanitarian access to Gaza, and of course he is continuing to appeal for a humanitarian ceasefire so that we can get aid to those who need it.
It does seem that humanitarian ceasefire isn't quite happening yet, and it's falling on deaf ears when it comes to the Israelis. They're not happy with the Secretary General right now. Have you managed to mend fences?
Ultimately, our focus is on improving the situation. We'll continue our contacts, and we are continuing our contacts at all levels with both the Israelis and with anyone in the region who can help with the situation. Ultimately, we want what everyone on the ground say they want, which is a release of the hostages and an end to this crisis.
We know that the Secretary General is on his way to Nepal for a scheduled presentation there. Do we expect him to stop off at any other regional capitals on the way back to New York?
At this stage, it's hard to say what the next days will hold. Of course, the Secretary General has made clear that he's perfectly willing to visit anywhere he can that will help make a difference in this case. And we'll let people know in due course.
Farhan Haq, the Deputy Spokesman for the UN Secretary General in New York. Thanks so much for joining us on Al Jazeera, sir.
Thank you.
As chaos grips Gaza around the world, there are huge displays of outrage and anger. Thousands of people are taking part in Palestinian solidarity rallies from the streets of Ramallah and Baghdad to London and Istanbul. In Turkey, the demonstrations have been called by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Well, Israel's foreign minister has ordered all of its diplomatic representatives to return from Turkey. It follows comments from Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan denouncing Israel's ongoing bombardment of Gaza. Osama bin Javed is in Istanbul, where a rally in support of the Palestinian people has taken place.
Erdogan has come out saying that Hamas, again reiterating Hamas are not terrorists, calling Israel a terror organization, saying that they are committing massacres against innocent civilians, war criminals as Turkey would like to present them to the rest of the world. And this is by far one of his strongest speeches that we've heard, as anger has been growing in Turkey. We saw thousands of people gathered last night when the latest onslaught on Gaza began, and here thousands and thousands of people have been arriving at this rally to show solidarity with Palestine. Recep Tayyip Erdogan also making reference to the West, saying that there is hypocrisy in the way they've been dealing with the people of Gaza, saying the people who were shedding crocodile tears over Ukraine are silent today. He's saying that whatever is happening in Gaza is happening at the behest of Western powers, and they should be held to account as well. So you're seeing much of the anger that has been happening in the last couple of weeks across the Middle East and Muslim majority nations. Erdogan taking it all in, and now saying it in front of this audience, and not just saying it to the people who are gathered here, but to an international audience as well.
In London, large crowds have taken to the streets to rally in support of Palestinians for the third weekend in a row. Nick Barker is at those demonstrations.
As you can see, the strength of feeling here in the British capital is immense. These demonstrations have been growing on a weekly basis. People, of course, are watching the horrors inflicted in Gaza on their television screens, and it's creating nothing but a huge amount of outrage and also anger directed at Britain's leading politicians, not only at the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, who diplomatically has fallen behind the United States in offering unequivocal support for Israel, but also the leader of the opposition Labour.
Yeah, guess what? The British population don't support Israel. We've been thinking for decades they're animals.
That he calls for an immediate ceasefire rather than simply this humanitarian pause. We've seen the resignation of multiple Labour councillors up and down the country as well. We know that Benjamin Netanyahu's government depends upon the West militarily and politically, but also morally as well, to continue justifying the bombardment in Gaza. The question is, given the strength of anger, the strength of feeling here, whether that unequivocal support by the British government and other Western governments,
Nothing will change. If you think back to 2003, when the UK had all the protests for the war in Iraq, did the British government take any notice? No. No. And that was a million-man march.
That decision was appealed by the organisers, but was confirmed by the courts on Saturday morning.
Do these people realise they're actually supporting? I don't know what the word is. Butchers. Oh, mummy, I killed 10 people. I killed 10 people with my bare hands. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. And mummy and daddy are crying on the phone because you can't believe their son is a murderer.
they question why France is banning protests when other European
Like I said earlier, if one of my brothers had killed 10 people, he wouldn't be getting a hero's welcome when he got to the house. He'd be getting his head kicked in. But then my brothers would never do it. One was a police officer, and me and my other brother are both ex-Royal Air Force. So it would never happen.
They say they feel more abandoned than ever before by the international community.
Yeah, it's all right, mate. Don't worry about it. I'm totally abandoned as well, so join the club.
No one cares about us. We appeal to the people of the world.
No one cares about anything now. As you see, they care more about protesting in London for Palestinian terrorists than they do their own families. They actually blocked a hospital off today, and I'm actually disgusted with that. So I won't lift a finger now to help the UK after seeing that.
Came to further
That's outrageous. Totally blocking the hospital. You know, I don't know if they knew it was there, but
on the ground, and we have been responding to
I'm surprised they got anywhere near it, because the last time I was at St Thomas's Hospital in London, or St Thomas Hospital in St Thomas's, I think, in London, London Bridge, the A3, was full of police. Totally full of police. Because I did a U-turn in the middle of the road, parked my car outside the hospital, unlocked all the doors of the car, opened the boot, opened the bonnet, ran into the hospital, came back, everything had been locked and everything had been closed. So the police obviously went to the vehicle to make sure it wasn't a bomb and said, no, he's just run into the hospital. They checked with the hospital, seeing I'd gone to see my niece, and that was all right. They didn't even give me a ticket.
I mean, how much of an impact is that on just simply getting people out from under the rubble to medical treatment, to the hospitals that are still operating?
Yeah, we received reports that the bombardments last night were believed to be some of the heaviest since the war started.
I will stop these protests.
We've lost 53 of our colleagues in Gaza during the war, and until last night we were not able to check on that situation, but highly likely that we have also lost.
Hey guys,
more colleagues.
I've earned a penny today. Yay!
Our correspondent was just
1B, yay! Can we make it 10 quid?
A huge problem.
I only need £10 a day. £300 a month. That's plenty.
In the making. Can you just give us an update?
I don't, as I say, I don't need to be rich. I just need to cover my rent and cover the gas and electric,
Supplies are running
which
out,
would be what, £100 a week?
Not at all enough. They are, we've called them a drop in the ocean, a drop in the sea of needs, and they're not increasing. And today we did not have a convoy, so it's getting much more complicated. And it won't be surprising that people who have been trapped in a hellhole, the hellhole that Gaza has become, with very dwindling supplies.
Guys, it's not a hellhole. Send me a ticket, and I'll go to Gaza tomorrow, and I'll go in through Egypt.
In the last hour or so, but we have been watching huge rallies around the world, namely in London, as well as Istanbul, Baghdad, as well as the US and New Zealand and many other countries. Does that give you a sense of hope that people are taking to the streets in support of Palestine and Palestinian people and what they're going
But they're not supporting Palestine.
But what's really important is for the world to remember that across the Gaza Strip, there are 2 million people who are just like you and I. I mean, I've been on several occasions over the past year And people there are very, very kind. Our teams on the ground are very dedicated, and they are really the glimmer in this darkness as humanity sinks into its darkest hour. So it's very, very important to remember that Gaza has 2 million people, women, children, elderly, normal men, normal women, doctors, engineers, and it was a very beautiful place.
Yeah, Falafel's even better.
And Middle East Studies at Rutgers University, and joins us here now in Doha. Good to have you with us on the programme. You heard there, certainly from UNRWA, about the ongoing...
Sorry guys, I'm not paying attention to the room.
Both in Gaza, but it's not just in Gaza, it's in the West Bank as well. And it's not just food issues, it's actual general security.
I mean, the Palestinian people have been put in this situation for so many years. Gaza in particular was under siege for 16 years, and they've been voicing their frustration again and again. They've been subject to 5 wars before that, and the Grand Return marches also, 2018, 2019. That was kind of an expression. And in his last report to the UN General Security Council, Tor Winsland, the UN coordinator, peace coordinator in the Middle East, he warned the people on 25th of September that Gaza cannot continue like that. It is coming to a major catastrophe. So before that, and take it also on the West Bank. The West Bank has been losing their land. There is a wall established on their land. Jerusalem is being attacked every day. The most sacred place, Al-Aqsa Mosque, had been stormed almost on daily basis. Every single day by the settler, 60,000 settlers entered the mosque forcibly during this year. Over 280 people were killed, including 4 children, before October 7. So losing their land, losing their olive trees, the settlers are attacking day in and day out, protected by the army. So this is the situation in the West Bank and Gaza. So how long the Palestinian people gonna take it? And they see an incompetent leadership on the West Bank also. So they have to take things into their own hands. So in the West Bank, they started this kind of resistance, especially in the refugee camps in Jenin and Nablus. And in Gaza, they cannot accept this kind of humiliation for how long?
So you are a Palestinian yourself.
Yes.
And we can give the wider picture to our international audience, as you just have.
Yeah.
How frustrating is it as a Palestinian when you talk to your friends in the West Bank, your family in the West Bank, your associates and colleagues in Gaza, in the academic area, of what's going on? Because you have the Western, the civilized world, who just doesn't seem to be able to find a way forward for the Palestinians and for the Israelis to sit down and talk peace and talk about a two-state solution, if that is the way forward. And yet we don't sometimes hear from the Palestinian leadership themselves. It's a very frustrating situation to be in.
I want to personalize some of the information I want to give. My village.
Right, I'll be back, guys. I'm just going to do some food.
From all sides. There's one entry to the village. If the Israelis want this road, this entry, the village becomes an open air prison, like Gaza. My wife and my daughter are near Jerusalem also. There is skepticism now. They hardly can go out. They go out just to shop and come back. People are waiting for something big to happen in the West Bank, especially if Gaza is overrun and the resistance could be destroyed. If that happens, there was some leaflets distributed by the settlers on all the villages. It says, you wanted war, a second Nakba is coming. That's what exactly, and it was published, this leaflet. So they're warning every village, every town in the West Bank that wait for what is coming, not only what's happening now. And look what's happening now. 108 people were killed, over almost 2,000 wounded. Houses are being demolished right and left. Every single night, people are arrested. Refugee camps are being stormed in the middle of the night. Imagine how much fear when you receive the soldiers coming into your bedroom putting all the family in one and arresting somebody or shooting. This is the situation in the West Bank.
And this is a situation that the UN Secretary General has flown into. We know that he's just been here in Doha. We heard that from his spokesperson. He's on his way to Nepal. He's trying to find a way forward with the international community. He's finding that very difficult. He needs good negotiators on board in various capitals, and he's looking at Doha, he's looking at Amman, he's looking at Cairo, and of course Jerusalem as well.
Yes. First, his relation with the Israelis is now very sour, as you know. He called, he left a message in the Prime Minister's office and they didn't respond. That before his speech in the Security Council last Tuesday. But he's trying with all the capitals now. And there is a momentum now after the General Assembly took that resolution yesterday. I was hopeful that he will issue a statement to welcome that resolution. He didn't. However, he referred to it in his statement issued today about the momentum that is now raging in every country, especially with those countries even who support Israel, like France and Belgium. They voted for the resolution in the General Assembly. So he has three priorities now. First, the ceasefire, immediate ceasefire, whatever you want to call it, pause or a humanitarian ceasefire. And the second, releasing the hostages. So that's, I think, explains his visit to Doha. And the third is the unfettered humanitarian supplies to go to Gaza with large volume, because average now 20 trucks a day, 84 trucks only entered Gaza. 84. Before that, he used 500 trucks a day. So that is his goal from these visits, including his stopover in Doha.
Indeed, lots of moving parts that are all interconnected. We'll continue to follow and analyse all of this. Abdulhamid Sayam there from Rutgers University. Thank you for joining us on set. And of course, we're showing you live pictures from Gaza that you can see.
I've found the right bags now, so I can start clearing up the rubbish. Can't get it downstairs, but at least I can put it in the front yard.
The Israelis made it very clear that they were continuing their military operation across the Gaza Strip. We wait to hear exactly where they have hit as and when we can get communications. Obviously, communications have been hit, and there is a blackout. That image there, and of course, I think you can see an orange halo. We think a fire there in the distance. We'll continue
to the fire.
Events here.
I didn't see it. I was downstairs. I was eating the yogurt.
Coverage of the war of Gaza. We also threats of violence from Israeli settlers towards Palestinian olive farmers in the occupied West Bank.
Let's get going with your weather report for Asia. Thank you so much for tuning in. And things pretty well where they should be in Pakistan, temperature-wise. So Jacobabad in Upper Sindh province, 35 degrees for you with the sun-cloud combo on Sunday. Now for India, it's mostly in the southern slice here. We're dealing with active weather through Kerala state, Tamil Nadu, just creeping into Uttar Pradesh, some thundery downpours. Same goes for Sri Lanka and the Maldives as well. There's been some hot nights in the Philippines, Western Visayas. Colors are on, darker the orange, the higher the temperature. This is a nighttime temperature, overnight low, 29 degrees, making it the second hottest October night anywhere in the Philippines. Now on Sunday, we've just got a few showers up and down the country, nothing major where the major rain is falling. Northwest Thailand through that southwest corner of China. So Yunnan, Guangxi province and around Hainan as well. Some torrential downpours here, but north of that, along the Yellow River Valley, Zhangzhou looking good. Plenty of sun with a high of 28 degrees. Still soggy for Japan's main island of Honshu. Breezy around Tokyo as well with gusts up to 80 kilometers per hour and getting striked with some pretty solid bands of rain for Kuala Lumpur. 34, the number for you on Sunday.
Welcome back. You're watching Al Jazeera. Reminder of our top developments in Israel's war on Gaza. Israel has subjected the Gaza Strip to the heaviest bombardment since the start of the war on October the 7th. Overwhelmed hospitals are now at breaking point. The United Nations says civil order has collapsed. Thousands of people have been marching in London to show solidarity with Palestine. They want Western countries to stop arming Israel. In Turkey, The president led a protest calling for an end to Israel's war on Gaza. Take to live pictures of Gaza right now, where we have been hearing large explosions and booms. We think an aerial bombardment is in progress across some parts of the Strip. We'll continue to monitor events visually as we continue to have communication steadily in that direction. Of course, it's difficult to get verbal communications as the Israelis have cut some of those communication links across the Gaza Strip. Well, of course, those troops are still in the field in Gaza. Nebel Faksa is a spokeswoman for the Palestine Red Crescent Society. She spoke with us earlier about the cut in those communications with her teams and how more than 2 million people are now in a war zone and unable to even call an ambulance.
So
That's all right.
Hours
They can't call an ambulance. I can't buy a loaf of bread. So
working on the ground right now in
both are going to result in death.
disconnection
So
with our operation room in Gaza, with all of our
welcome to the real world that we live in now. No one wants to help each other.
as well as our hospitals there.
Nobody wants to help each other.
Of our team who are right now working on the ground under the intense bombardment that is taking place all over Gaza. So we're talking about complete disconnection, and that means as well that peoples in Gaza, civilians, over 2 million Palestinians there, are unable now to communicate with the ambulance service as well as hospitals. That means our EMS services absolutely are struggling now to reach the wounded people and injured people in a timely manner. I assume they are now hearing the sound of bombardments and try to follow the sounds to arrive the locations and build up their humanitarian role, try to save as much people as they can, which it's absolutely hinder their work there. Taking into consideration that there is many patients who are in emergency situations as well as women, pregnant women. We're talking about 5,500 women are expecting to give birth this month. So at any emergency situation, civilians now are unable to communicate with the ambulance.
500 people living in a refugee camp are going to give birth this month.
Impacting the health care services in Gaza and the reach of the people to emergency medical services there.
The Israeli army has demolished the home of a prominent Hamas leader in the occupied West Bank. Imran Khan reports now from the Jalazon refugee camp.
The raid in Jalazon refugee camp took place around 2 a.m. in the morning. The Israelis came in to the camp. They took over the perimeter, about 200 soldiers they used, and then they brought in a bulldozer to bulldoze this house. This house actually belongs, part of it at least, to a Hamas activist within the Jalazon refugee camp, Barjis Nakhleh. Now, Barjis Nakhleh has actually been in prison several times. He's right now was arrested on October the 7th. This is what the Israelis did to the house. They took that bulldozer and they bulldozed the entire front structure. Now, we've been speaking to members of the family who say that this is nothing but Israeli vengeance against their father and the family.
This is a punishment for the whole family. We told the lawyer, if they want to punish our father, let them close the first floor. We live in the second and the third, and I have not been charged with anything, but they demolished it all. They want to disperse the family.
Human rights organizations, both in Palestine and in Israel, call this collective punishment. We've seen it a number of times, both here in the occupied West Bank, in occupied East Jerusalem. Whenever somebody gets arrested, the Israelis take it out on their house. 11 people used to live here. 11 people are now homeless as a result of the Israeli army's actions. Now, just to give you some figures, since October the 7th, some 6,600 Palestinians are actually held in Israeli jail. 1,600 of those are held under administrative detention. They're held without charge. That's the highest figure in nearly 20 years. Imran Khan, Al Jazeera, Jalazon refugee camp.
Well, staying in the occupied West Bank, a Palestinian olive farmer has been shot dead by Israeli settlers as he harvested his crop. Palestinian olive growers have suffered decades of violence by settlers and increasingly restricted access to their crops. But since Hamas's attacks on southern Israel on October the 7th, the UN says the situation has got much worse. Let's cross over to Ramallah in the occupied West Bank, where Charles Stratford is standing by with the very latest. And Charles, as we've mentioned, houses demolished, a farmer killed, Israeli settlers continue to ambush and
that was fireworks.
Palestinians.
That's
What's
not
the moving parts
Terry,
to this ongoing
that's
civil war
outside.
where you are?
That's right, Sahel. Yeah, 25 Palestinians arrested since midnight last night. We're expecting more raids in
There should be criminals then, did they?
In recent days, it's usual that around 2, 3 in the morning, we start to see videos of Israeli armoured vehicles going to various neighbourhoods and refugee camps across the occupied West Bank. As you heard Imran say there in his piece, 1,550 arrests made since October the 7th. More than 6,500 Palestinians in Israeli jails now under administrative detention, meaning that they can be held or are being held without charge. Meanwhile, as you say, we have seen more attacks by settlers.
Wow,
people trying
what's
to harvest
that?
Their olives. It's such an important
That's
time
Tel
of year.
Aviv.
It's vital for the Palestinian.
Oh my God, guys, are you seeing this? This is Tel Aviv.
This latest death, a man called Bilal Saleh, 40 years old. He actually used to sell wild herbs here in was very well known. He
Oh
leaves
my God.
a wife and
So much for the Iron Dome.
yes, and Palestinian
Top,
authorities saying that the settlers
top
shot him
left-hand corner,
in the chest. Just the
I think, on your screens.
Meanwhile, we're expecting
Top right on mine, so it's got to be top left of you, is Tel Aviv burning.
People are actually stopped for prayers, it seems, but we're expecting more demonstrations in support of Gazans and demanding that the international community do more to stop the violence being exacted on the Gaza Strip in the coming hours. We've been looking in more detail at the kind of pressures, the kind of dangers that Palestinians
Wow, Tel Aviv is burning.
of these attacks by Hamas.
Sorry, I oppose any form of violence,
Olive harvest season,
especially killing innocent women and children.
the most important time of year for thousands of Palestinian farmers. Many have owned land and farmed these rocky slopes for generations. Israeli settlers have set up outposts on the hill and blocked the road with concrete and earth.
Right, I need to go downstairs. I need to clean the kitchen.
Palestinian farmers every move.
I need to bring the I need to bring the desk back up, put it in here, and then clear the rubbish out of the kitchen, put it in the front yard, and start clearing the house up. Start with the kitchen next to the hallway, so they've got at least the
Ilham shows me where settlers have put
at least they've got the
they use it to set light to them. Some are hundreds of years old.
hallway,
She says
this
settler attacks
bedroom,
have increased since the start of the war.
landing,
The level of violence
bathroom clean.
They've stopped even talking to
We'll
us.
do
now.
the kitchen,
They've just
get
come
the
and
kitchen
beat us.
clean.
Some open fire,
Yeah,
killing
but
people.
what do I-
There is no way they will ever entertain even the thought of a mutual understanding between us.
Noor crosses the barrier and tentatively starts walking towards his olive trees. Israeli soldiers near the hilltop settler outpost begin descending the slope towards him. An armoured vehicle moves down the road. In the last few minutes, the drone, which we understand is being operated by either the settlers or the army, has returned. Noor tried to get to his fields, but the local mayor here has told
Right, let me ask a question. If they're blocking the road off, how are they going to get out from the settlement themselves?
beyond those trees. Settlers set fire to this Palestinian car close by. The Hebrew graffiti on the wall is a threat to kill or kick out Palestinians from this area. Sharif Hamid finds it hard to walk because he says a group of armed settlers beat him using iron bars.
يجينا كل زي كل يوم الصبح We came like we do
They're
every
just
day early in the morning.
animals.
They had a drone above us filming. A settler appeared with his sheep.
Both
He was about
sides.
200 meters away. And he
Israel
played music and sang in
and
Hebrew. Then he left.
the
Suddenly,
Ghazians, the
half an hour later,
Palestinians.
7 of them
They're just
appeared and
animals.
started beating us. They dragged my uncle off the stepladder and beat him on the legs. They beat me on my head, my arms, and my legs, and then they left. The guy with the sheep stole my car.
Rights groups say the Israeli military protects the settlers and often ignore the violence they commit. The UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office says settler attacks against Palestinians and their property have more than doubled since the Hamas attacks inside Israel on October the 7th. At least 7 a day, many involving firearms.
This season, the terrorist settlers are organized. They come, they beat us, they take our cars and destroy them. They are armed. They have killed more than one person here in this area.
Well,
Every
why
year,
don't
their
they get
violence gets
arms?
worse. Every year, they get closer to where we live.
Palestinian olive farmers have suffered decades of increasing restricted access to their lands and Israeli settler attacks. This year, like every year, they pick what they can.
Why can't they get armed and defend themselves?
Charles Trafford, Al Jazeera, Burqa, the occupied West Bank.
Hamas is reportedly trying to locate 8 Russian-Israeli captives held in Gaza. It says it'll free them when they're found. Now, that's after a Hamas delegation visited the country at Moscow's invitation. We can get more on this from Yulia Shapovalova in Moscow. It does seem, though, that officials in Moscow want to...
Just need to, I just need to have a quick check of the thing.
We know that some representatives of the Hamas group received a list with the names of 8 Russian citizens on it, and they receive it from the Russian Foreign Ministry, and presumably those 8 people may be among those taken by Hamas and taken in captivity. That was according to the representative of the political wing of Hamas, Musa Abu Marzouk, and he spoke with RIA Novosti news agency during his visit to Moscow, and he said that Hamas would pay a lot of attention to the list and would process it carefully because, according to him, Hamas considers Russia their closest friend. And he also added that it would be difficult to find those people, but they would try. And obviously, Hamas, after that, would possibly release them, despite all the difficulties. During the current situation, of course. So the Hamas delegation arrived in Russia for negotiations with the Russian Foreign Ministry on Thursday, and it was an unannounced visit. And according to the Russian Foreign Ministry, the release of Russian foreign captives was discussed there, while Israel obviously condemned their visit and criticized Moscow, calling the invitation of Hamas an undignified step.
Indeed, well, Israel might be upset with Moscow right now, but Moscow's foreign minister, certainly Russia's foreign minister, Mr. Lavrov, has been speaking quite critical of the Israeli operation right now in Gaza and the West Bank.
Well, Sergei Lavrov has indeed said that Russia condemns terrorism, of course. He expressed condolences to all those who lost their loved ones. But at the same time, he said that Russia categorically disagrees that terrorism can be responded to by violating the norms of international law, including the indiscriminate use of force against targets where civilians are located. Lavrov has said that if the Gaza Strip is destroyed and 2 million people are driven out of it, that would create a catastrophe for many decades and not say. According to Lavrov, Russia maintains contacts with too, and it talks with all parties involved in the conflict. Russia's calling to find a peaceful solution to the crisis, but at the same time, Lavrov thinks that direct negotiations on the creation of 2 states, Palestine and Israel, are hardly achievable.
I'll be back, guys.
In Moscow, thank you.
Watch the other videos, please.
The Israeli army says that it's intercepted a surface-to-air missile fired from Lebanon. It says it was aimed at one of its military drones near Upper Galilee. An Israeli drone strike then targeted the launch site in Lebanon. Thousands of people on the Lebanese side of the border have been forced to leave their homes following rocket fire and skirmishes between Israeli forces and the Lebanese armed group Hezbollah. Ali Hashem is in Naqoura in southern Lebanon near the Israeli border with the latest update.
A lot of tit-for-tat happening here in Naqoura and other Lebanese border villages. In the past 3 hours, Hezbollah tried to launch guided missiles towards Israeli military positions overseeing Naqoura and Mash'ad, and also to the east in the Sheba farms. However, Israel retaliated by shelling the vicinity of the villages. One of the mortars hit a house here in Naqoura without causing a lot of damage. It was an unexploded shell. Now also, as you said in the intro, Israel has also intercepted a southeast to a missile that was heading towards a drone, towards the a bit to the north of the border. Now, this situation is kind of taking a new form as of today, with seeing more drones introduced into the battle. Also, Hezbollah launching several attacks in an early hour, because in general we're used to later attacks. Now it seems that the attacks are starting earlier. Also, the fact that over the past few days, the situation was calmer than today. Today it's really intense, and we can feel that, and the fires are still burning in the bushes behind us. So situation is, yes, as I'm saying, is escalating on the Lebanese-Israeli border, and of course this is linked in a way or another to the ground operations in Gaza.
Plenty more ahead here on Al Jazeera, including protesters in Bangladesh demand the resignation of the Prime Minister. That story after the break.
Hello again. There has been some flooding in Jeddah in western Saudi Arabia, and I think we could see more of the same on Sunday with these storms erupting around the Red Sea. So let's go in here for a closer look, not just in Jeddah, but the other side of the Red Sea as well in Eritrea. The rain also moving into northwest Saudi Arabia around Al Ula. But up and down the Gulf states, looking good. Things much more comfortable. 32, the number for us here in Doha. Off to Central Asia, also quiet picture here. Plenty of sun. Temperatures coming up as a result of that. So Turkmenistan's capital, Ashgabat, 28. Now for Turkey, a bit more cloud cover. We've got some showers draped across the Black Sea coast here. Nothing major. Most of the country will be dealing with sunny conditions. There is more cloud cover, though, mostly cloudy sky from Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. And as we look toward West Africa, fairly quiet, but through the south coast of Nigeria, some pulses of rain. Same goes for Kenya. Weather alerts in play here for how intense that rain has been, and also for Somalia, just to the west of Mogadishu. And for this eastern side of South Africa, it is quite active, and then cooler air filters in. Joburg goes from 23 to just 10 degrees on Monday.
Welcome back. Let's give you some of the day's other top stories now. At least 35 people have been killed and 50 injured after several cars crashed in northern Egypt. It happened in Beira Governorate, about 132 kilometers from the capital, Cairo. A 16-year-old Iranian girl who fell into a coma after an incident on Tehran's metro system has died. CCTV from October the 1st show Armita Gervan entered a train. A few moments later, her body is pulled from the coach. The teenager was declared brain dead about a week ago. Human rights activists say guards confronted her for not wearing a headscarf. Iranian authorities say she fainted and hit her head. Dorsa Jabari has more from Tehran.
Official news agencies in Iran have announced that 16-year-old Armita Gervand is officially dead. The 16-year-old was put on life support after going into a coma on October 1st. Now, she was last seen making her way to school when she entered the subway station here, Shohada metro station, just eastern part of the capital, Tehran. The footage released by officials show her entering a subway car And what happened in that car is unknown, according to the CCTV footage, because officials say that particular train car did not have security cameras. Officials have said that she suffered from low blood pressure and she passed out and hit her head on something in that car, and then she's seen being taken out and then taken to hospital. She was taken to Fajr Hospital, where she has been on life support until Saturday. Now, her family have only given interviews to state TV. Many human rights groups, both inside and outside the country, are questioning the official account that has been put forth by officials here, and also accusing the establishment of putting pressure on the family to basically confirm the account that they've provided. We have had no access to her family either. We have not been allowed to question any members of the medical staff that looked after her to verify the information that's been put forth. What is important here is not only the death of a 16-year-old, but also the fact that the narrative and the story behind her death is something many are questioning here. Of course, after the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, after being arrested by morality police, and then the protests that erupted following her death. There is certainly a lot of grief in Iran today as a result of her passing, and also a lot of question and a lot of mistrust in the narrative that's been provided by the officials. Dorsa Jabari, Al Jazeera, Tehran.
Now, the main opposition party in Bangladesh is holding a protest against the government in the capital. One police officer was killed as security forces fired tear gas and rubber bullets. Opposition supporters are demanding the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, resign. Tanvir Chaudhry reports now from the capital, Dhaka.
This was one of the largest opposition rally in decades. In several parts of the city, there was also a rally called by the ruling party, Awami League. What was in general a peaceful rally was dispersed by the police. There's tear gas, stun grenades, as well as rubber bullets fired towards the crowd trying to disperse in Neapolitan area of the capital city. The opposition has been carrying out rallies since the beginning of the year. The key demands is they want an interim caretaker government to conduct the election, which is due sometime in January 2024. The government is adamant. They say under the constitution, the election must be held under the present government, but the government remains defiant. They don't want to have a caretaker government. They said under the constitution, it cannot be held. Now, both sides have taken a defiant approach, and it looks more and more very confrontational. The police have been cracking down heavily on the opposition member all across the country. Thousands of opposition members have been arrested. The opposition remains defiant. It says that it will continue to protest until and unless the government steps down and hand it over to a caretaker interim administration to conduct the election. Tanvir Chaudhry, Al Jazeera, Dhaka.
Now, nearly a year on from a stampede in South Korea in which 159 people were killed, families are demanding accountability. Eunice Kim has more.
The nightmare that shocked a nation, where many had suffocated in a bottleneck, a wall of remembrance now stands.
I still don't understand how something like this could happen. To us, a year flew by. I can't imagine how it's been for the families.
A year ago, the first Halloween weekend after pandemic restrictions were lifted, this nightlife hotspot of Itaewon drew an influx of people with little crowd control, and help was slow to arrive.
Now, this is the narrow alleyway where 158 people were fatally crushed that night. Now, to prevent a reoccurrence, Seoul City says it will install more security cameras optimized with AI video analysis that will enable it to more quickly find danger spots.
In addition to monitoring crowds, police and firefighters will be required to respond if 3 emergency calls are made within 50 meters of each other. But grieving families say they're still seeking answers to basic questions from that night. Why a victim's declared time of death doesn't match the official timeline of events. Why fire crews were kept from immediately taking the wounded to hospitals. And why they've yet to receive an apology in person for the botched response.
카메라와 마이크 앞에서는
Government, including the president and the safety minister, apologized many times in front of cameras. But if we, the bereaved families, try to meet them, they just ignore us. For us, the Itaewon disaster is ongoing.
오히려 저희 유가족들이 다가가면
Will there ever be some type of closure for us? We need closure. We need an explanation to be able to properly grieve.
So far, no high-level government official has been dismissed for the man-made disaster. Families say they will keep fighting for an independent inquiry to seek accountability and closure. Eunice Kim, Al Jazeera, Seoul.
That's it for now for this news hour. I'll be back with more after the break on our special coverage of the war on Gaza.
Thought-provoking answers. But the patient doesn't have time to wait for all that.
It's extremely unfortunate, but there are no quick wins in dementia research.
Hard-hitting interviews.
Do you feel like America is less segregated these days, or is it just a different form?
I think that democracy is a process. Facing realities.
Do you fear that the
Hey,
fracture
guys.
is already starting? The G7 and the US on one side, China and the BRICS on the other? I think there is a huge risk of that to happen.
Hear their story on Talk to Al Jazeera.
I've been traveling through memories of my life, learning something new each and every time. On my side, on my
Gaza, hours after the heaviest bombardment since the war began. Israel says its ground troops are fighting inside the territory. I'm Zahar Rahman. You're watching Al Jazeera live from my headquarters here in Doha. Also coming up. More than 1,000 people are trapped under rubble. Rescue efforts are hampered by ongoing airstrikes and a lack of equipment. The United Nations says civil order has collapsed. Protests against Israel's war on Gaza gather pace as hundreds of thousands of people join Palestinian solidarity rallies around the globe. And growing fears for the fate of captives held by Hamas in Gaza as their families pressured the Israeli government for a deal to secure their release. It's just past 1700 hours GMT. That's 7 o'clock in the evening in Gaza, where Palestinians are being warned again by Israel to leave northern parts of the Strip. The Israeli army says its troops are still in the field in Gaza after widening their attacks on the territory. Israel unleashed the heaviest bombing since the start of the war on Friday. The United Nations says the situation is dire, with no place considered safe. The relentless bombing campaign came in tandem with a near-total communications blackout. Emergency services were unable to find the injured, instead resorting to chasing the sound of airstrikes. Around the world, protests are being held denouncing Israel's military actions, and that includes London, Rome, Baghdad, and Istanbul. Well, we'll get more on the protests later, but first let's cross over to Tariq Abu Azoum in Khan Yunis, who's in Gaza. And Tariq, within the last hour, we've heard a lot of booms, a lot of bangs, and plumes of smoke have been reported. Just tell us what we know about what we think are more raids on the Gaza Strip.
Yes, the Israeli raids continue targeting several sites in the territory. During the last hour, different sites in the Gaza Strip were bounded by the Israeli airstrikes. The first position that has been struck is the residential house in Rafah district. This city, which contains hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, have been widely bombarded during the last couple of hours. Also, another bombardment took place in Zaytun neighborhood, which witnessed massive bombardment by the Israeli artillery during the last hour. The Israeli ongoing bombardment of the Gaza Strip made broad catastrophic consequences to civil infrastructures, as more than 20,000 residential units were leveled to the ground and completely destroyed. And also the civil infrastructure, roads, factories, industrial sectors are highly affected by the Israeli ongoing raids, which really will take years in order to be rehabilitated again. Due to the Israeli unprecedented bombardment of the territory. Now the Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip relatively seem to be calm, but the Israeli drones cannot really leave the sky of the Gaza Strip, as it keeps hovering on the sky in order to gather information for further strikes that might really hit the territory.
Of course, there's a lot of people behind you, but it's another worrying night for all of the residents that are continually told to move to a safer place. But we have to reiterate, there is no safe place in Gaza.
The majority of Palestinians have followed the orders of the Israeli occupation forces, especially those who are really residing in the northern and central areas of the Gaza Strip. They followed the orders of the Israeli occupation. They stopped to evacuate to the southern areas of the territory. And meanwhile, the Israeli troops attack them while they are evacuating the houses, and different families were really delivered to the southern areas in Khan Yunis and in Rafah district also were attacked, and these areas which considered to be safe from the perspective of the Israeli occupation forces. And one of them is the family of our Arabic correspondent, Wael Dahdouh, whose family has been hit civilly by the Israeli airstrikes. Also, the current situation on the ground in the southern areas considered to be really devastating. People here are so desperate that they might lose their life at any moment.
Tariq Abu Azoum, therefore, is in Khan Yunis. Of course, we'll continue to monitor events with you as the night progresses. Thank you. Mansour Shuman lives in Gaza. He described what the last 24 hours have been like.
This is the 21st day of the Israeli aggressions on 2.3 million civilians in the open cage prison that is Gaza. Over the last 24 hours, there was a lot of chaos, given that they tried to cut the communication, internet, phone lines here within Gaza. However, the people here in Gaza, despite all the challenges, despite everything they are going through, they are still holding steadfast. They are still extremely angry with the general public not being
Well, that's not live.
aid come inside.
Daylight behind him.
As you are aware, there is no safe location for Gaza. Churches have been bombed, hospitals have been bombed, mosques have been bombed. We were told, go to the south will be safe. 4 people died in the south from bombs that in the north. So this is a regime that is built on deception. This is a regime that's
Gaza Health Ministry, 19,734 Palestinians injured.
With the sky above me as my blanket, and I do not know what I'm going to
1,600 missing.
Displaced Palestinians have taken supplies from a UN food supply centre in southern Gaza, but shortages leave 2.3 million at risk of starvation. Palestinians in Deir el-Balah left the facility with food bags and boxes. They say they feel more abandoned than ever by the international community.
We have no flour, no aid, no water, not even toilets. Our houses were destroyed. No one cares about us. We appeal to the people of the world. All international powers are against us. We needed aid, and we wouldn't have done this if we weren't in need.
Sarah Kairat has more now from occupied East Jerusalem on the Israeli military's latest warning to people in northern Gaza.
Yeah, well, the spokesman for the army, Daniel Hagari, has said on Twitter, on social media, that he's warning it's an urgent appeal to those living in the north of Gaza and Gaza City to head to the south. It's interesting, the wording in there, because he said to temporarily move to the south. We've not really heard that until now. There's also amongst Palestinians certainly a feeling that they're trying to force the Palestinians out of Gaza through opening these humanitarian corridors. There's also been talk that they don't want this to be a second Nakba. Nakba is known as the day of catastrophe in 1948 when 750,000 Palestinians were forced from their homes. Many of them had to leave and have never been able to return. Also in that message, he said that they were looking to target Hamas with precision. Again, trying to tell Palestinians and even international community, because there has been that criticism towards Israel. So they're trying to say that they would only be targeting Hamas and not civilians. Well, of course, the death toll tells us a very different story of civilians that have been killed in Gaza. But also, the other thing is how are they getting that message across to people in Gaza when it's in complete blackout? People aren't able to access the internet. They're not able to even be able to convey that message to them. We've seen a video from overnight where the only way to be able to communicate amongst Palestinians was using speakers in the mosques to get the message out and the word out that they were being attacked, and that this whole part of Gaza, the whole of Gaza, for the first time, has been plunged into complete darkness with no electricity, no telecommunication, and no access to the internet. The government has previously dropped leaflets to inform the Palestinians in Gaza. Potentially they could do that again. But for many people, they refuse to leave, even though Israel has accused Hamas of stopping them from being able to move.
And as Sarah was reporting to the left of your screen, you can see that, of course, larger live shot that we're giving you of Gaza, and the aerial bombing has continued in certain parts of the Strip, and we'll continue to monitor what goes on there through the evening. Now, a rocket fired from Gaza has hit a residential area in a suburb of Tel Aviv. Several cars have been damaged, but no casualties have been reported. Hamas says it's continuing to launch rockets as it confronts Israeli raids on Gaza. Now, dozens of Israelis are also protesting in Tel Aviv, demanding that the government do more to secure the release of captives held by Hamas. Relatives of have criticised the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, for not making the issue a top priority. They're increasingly worried after Israel's military says it targeted Hamas tunnels in Gaza, where many of the captives are believed to be held. They're also angry over the government's inaction and failure to update them on negotiation efforts. A spokesman of Hamas's armed wings says an agreement was in the works to release captives held in Gaza, but he says it was derailed because Israel is stalling the process.
Contacts have been made regarding the captives, and there was a chance to reach a sort of agreement, but the enemy stalled and was not serious to put an end to the suffering and the bombardment. This constant shelling has led to the death of around 50 of these captives. And from here, we are telling the enemy that we have a large number of enemy captives, and the price of returning them is the emptying of all prisons and releasing all prisoners.
Now, the UN Secretary General has visited Doha to discuss what he called an unprecedented escalation in Gaza. Antonio Guterres met with the Qatari Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, discussing options for de-escalation. While Farhan Haq is the deputy spokesman for the UN Secretary General, he says Antonio Guterres is working to aid mediation efforts to release captives in Gaza.
The Secretary General wanted to have consultations on the Middle East crisis. So in Doha, he spoke to the Prime Minister of Qatar, but he also spoke by telephone with President Sisi of Egypt. So he's continuing his contacts, and he expressed his gratitude to Qatar for their mediation initiatives. So we are continuing to plead for the release of all of the hostages who are in Gaza. For us, the big point is to reach out to everyone we can who have influence with either side, with either Israelis or with Hamas, to put an end to the situation that we're in right now. With the Secretary General, what that means is that the hostages must be released unconditionally, that there must be unimpeded